So welcome to Using Physics Handles. In this video, I'm going to explain that Unreal provides a really handy tool called a physics handle that's ideal for picking things up. The physics handle component documents are very scant. You can look that word up if you're not English. Find an example of this and use it in the engine. So it's a hard thing to use unless you can see it being used as an example. I'm going to show you how to find an example of it in the engine. Then we'll get the physics handle working. So there are the docs. And it's an exciting video because by the end of it, we will have a situation where we can actually pick things up and throw them around and drop them. Look at that. How cool. So just before we get this working, I want to talk to you about a mental discipline that I call red-green refactor. It comes from test-driven development, which is where you write your code to pass certain formal tests. But in our case, it still applies. So the first stage is red, it's not working, the test is failing. That's where we are now. The physics handle isn't working. So our job is to get to green, which is where it's working. And ugly is okay. And this is the important bit, is to be clear on whether you're just trying to get something working right now, or whether you're trying to refactor, which is the third step, to make things pretty. And of course, they must still work. So the beauty is this. We start off with it not working, which is where we are. We work hard to just get it working, kind of whatever it takes. We then commit our work to source control and say, okay, it works. I can now safely make it how I really wanted it, make it pretty, make it clear, knowing that I can always go back to the working version that's ugly and try again if I mess things up. And then you just keep repeating that sequence. So I just want to stress that before we dive in here. I'm just trying to get the physics handle working. We're going to do whatever it takes. If it's copying and pasting code, doesn't matter for now, because we want to focus on one thing at a time when things get complex. And now it's just, let's get it working. Okay, so we need the physics handle component. Let me just go back a slide to here, which is the documentation of the physics handle. Let's start there. There it is, tells you lots of stuff about it, all the functions that are available on it. These are the ones we're going to use. We're going to start by grab in component in that grab method. And we're going to pass in a uPrimitive component pointer, which we won't look at in detail, but I'll show you how to get hold of one of those. We're going to pass in a null bone name because bones are to do with skeletal animation, where you have a skeleton of a humanoid or a dog or anything. We don't have one of those in this case. The meshes that we are dealing with are all static meshes. Let's take a look. Click on the chair and you can see in the world outline where it says static even, mesh actor. So we're not dealing with bones. So we're going to be passing in a no bone name here. Then it's going to say the grab location. That is, where are we going to grab this thing? Well, where we're going to grab it, i.e. what part of it are we going to grab hold of? We're just going to use the base point. You see this circle here, the white ball, which is the origin of the chair or the table. That's a good enough point to grab. If we're standing here and we grab that, it'll end up straight in front of us at the end of that reach line. So we're going to attach the end of the reach line. Let's just move forward and just visualize this a little. Then eject with F8, zoom out. Remember that reach line that used to stick out? I've turned the debug trace off now, but the idea is it's going to stick out and it's going to touch onto this white origin point. So the chair will kind of lift up into the air, and then as we walk around, we want to update its position to stay on the end of the reach line. So this chair will end up kind of, well, we've got physics on at the moment, so I need to pause. This chair will end up staying at the end of the reach line. That's difficult for me to simulate. Okay, so that's that bit. Then once we have grabbed the component, then every frame we are going to set the target location to the end of the reach line. And then the final thing that we're going to need to be able to do is to actually drop it, and somewhere should be a release component. Where's that? Am I being blind? I can't see it right now. I'm going to do a search. Here you go. It's just out of alphabetical order. You have a release component method there, which releases the currently held handle. So you'll notice, though, that this Unreal documentation doesn't actually have any full example code. So let me show you a little trick here for getting hold of example code in some cases. You can go into your IDE, you can do a search. If I use find in Visual Studio here, and I search the entire solution for the method that we want to use first, which is grab component, just to make it as specific as possible, and I do a find all. So I want you to do this find. Find an example in the engine. Search the engine for physics handle, look for examples of it being used. If that returns too many results, then try grab component as I just started, and see if you can find an example of its usage in the engine. And remember, there's a link to the documentation. And I just want you to have an example in front of you before we go ahead and try and do it for ourselves. Cool, welcome back. So I'm going to complete this search now by going find all. And I'm looking for somewhere where they've already used it to give us a clue as to how we use it. And one example here is in this physics manipulation mode.cpp. We have grab component right here. Grab component, component to grab, some name none, which is the bone name, where we're going to update, where we're going to grab it, i.e. that white handle as I talked about at the origin of the table or chair, and then whether rotation is allowed or not, say true there. So that's quite handy. I'm going to copy that code, grab component. So where do we put it? Well, in our grab component method, let me just close these other files. Here you go. Here, then we have to attach the physics handle. So we've got the physics handle, right? We found the reference already in a method above. So we go physics handle. Now that's a pointer, so arrow operator. Now, paste their code in. Grab component, and then let's go through and see what we've got. We've got a component to grab, which we need to create. They've got this name none thing. What's that about? It's an enumerator for the bone. And we don't need anything, so we're going to use name none because there is no bone to grab hold of. Where are we going to grab the thing? The table, the chair? Well, we're going to grab it at its location, that white anchor point, and we're going to allow rotation. So I'll just comment to say allow. So it means that when we're grabbing it, it's allowed to spin round. So what we need to do is get this component to grab now. So what do we get out of get first physics body and reach? Well, we get let's use auto, hit result. Remember, if we go and look in get first physics body and reach, let's go see what it returns. Oh, well, that's a mistake. It shouldn't return a method like that. It should be returning hit. Remember that we made this variable, we used it as an out parameter, and then we return what's actually hit. So return hit. Now this code arguably shouldn't be here, but I'm not in refactor mode right now. I am in just get it working. So I'm going to resist the urge to refactor anything. We just need to fix the fact that our get first physics body and reach was not returning the right thing. It now returns a hit, which is better. Now the hit ends up in hit result up here. Okay, so that's cool. What do we do with that hit result? Well, we need a couple of things, don't we? We need a component to grab. That means what part of the chair or the table do we grab? How would we even know? Well, let's go auto. So it's got a type that's inferred for us. Then we go hit result dot. Now you could just type component and you'll see that you've got a get component method that returns this uPrimitive component pointer, which is the type that we want for this first parameter. Look, if I delete this first parameter and just open the brackets again, you see it wants a uPrimitive component pointer. Okay, so we're just matching types here. We're just giving it the type it is looking for, and we are following the example from Unreal's code. So that sounds promising. Then we've got the bone name, which is none, and then we've got the grab location, which comes next, which is just the actor location, and then we want to allow rotation. So that's pretty cool. The other thing we're going to want to do is it says we only want to do this if we hit something. So auto actor hit equals hit result dot get actor. Then we can say, and as a recap for the beginners, I'll explain what this really means, if actor hit. Now that's the same as saying if the actor hit is not equal to null pointer. i.e. if we actually got something out of this hit result, if there is an actor attached, then if actor hit doesn't equal null pointer, or more succinctly, if there's an actor hit, then we go ahead and attach the physics handle. Does that make sense, what I'm doing there? I know it's a lot to take on in one go. Obviously, I need some curly braces around all of this lot. So I'm going to highlight it and just go shift and curly brace to do that. That's how it works in Visual Studio. So if there's an actor hit, attach the physics handle. I don't need any more to say to do. Just attach the physics handle, allowing rotation. That's pretty cool. Now, we're not going to know if that's worked right now, because every frame we need to say, if the physics handle's attached, move the object that we're holding. So how do we say if the physics handle's attached? Well, we can say if physics handle, and then we've got a method called grabbed component there. Well, it's actually a property called grabbed component, which is this primitive component we grabbed hold of. So we're saying if we have a grabbed component, then we need to move the object that we're holding. Okay, so how are we going to move it? Well, we're going to say physics handle again. And then there's a method on there, which is the set target location. Remember, that was the third method I told you about. I know I'm doing a lot for you here, but this is a very new thing and it's not very well documented. So I thought I'd help you out a bit. We have set target location. Now, what are we going to set the target location to? As I said earlier, we're going to set it to the end of the reach line. Now, this is not the nicest way of doing it, but we're not refactoring now. So if we want the end of the line trace or the reach line, I'm just going to grab all this code that we know does it, copy it, and just paste it up here where we need it. That's horrible, and we'll refactor it in a bit, but at least it gives us access to a line trace end right now. Okay, and I'm just saying we're still just trying to get this working. Let's try. So we compile the code, and we're still compiling the code. And then we come along and we have a look, and if we right-click, you see, that white point that I talked about, the origin has come right in front of our face. Let's try it with the chair. Right-click or left-shift. See what's happening? And the reach handle is working. Perfect. Let's just make it drop, and then we've actually finished getting it working. How do we make it drop? Well, on the release method, where we have to do release physics handle, let's just see what methods we've got. Well, we looked at it. I told you earlier, didn't I? It's physics handle. It's a pointer. Release component. That's all you have to do. We've already bound the input, so the release gets called when we let go of the key. Let's see if that works. Compile was quicker because a lot of the work's already been done. We come along, we grab the table, let go, and it falls. Grab the chair. That feels great. Look at that. Awesome. So look, our work is now done because it's working. So here's the discipline. Save everything in Unreal. File, save as. Save all. Close it. I'm going to save everything in my IDE and close it. I'm going to go over to my source control, and then at this point I'm going to stage everything, and I am then going to commit these changes. So do that before we move on in the next video and refactor and make this code something that we can build on.